You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's December the 18th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your cannabis and psychedelic news source here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Rev Kelly. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Good Monday morning. I'm great. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Not too bad at all. You know, I'm looking at the right. Well, I was going to say, I'd say I'd be looking at the grass growing, but it's not growing too much at this time of the year.
It feels like spring with the weather around us, though. I mean, I think it was 11 degrees and rain yesterday. It's so weird.
It is. It is weird. And, you know, I looked at the long range forecast, and they're talking like a high of 4 for Christmas Day.
Oh, that's not a white Christmas, is it? We'll just have to pretend. In our area of Ontario, it will be white.
This area.
Yeah.
North of us, there's snow.
Right. And the North Pole, of course, is filled with snow all the time.
Correct.
And I think this is our last snow show before the holidays, Al.
It is, exactly. This last show you and I will be doing here on Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News for the year 2023. Yeah. We will return to our regular Monday programming in the new year, which will be January something.
It's January something. So
I'm thinking it's probably around the 8th or something like that.
Oh my goodness, that feels so long. Okay, so we'll give you a good send off.
Yes, that sounds like a good plan. Let's see, I'm looking at it now. January the 9th. Okay. That's because, like, you know, January the 2nd.
Yeah.
Is still, you know,
it's a holiday.
It's still a holiday, right? And when we return back here on the Pace Radio Network, we'll be broadcasting starting January the 5th, which will be starting with the news again, but it'll be the Thursday edition versus the Monday.
Right. So you'll have to get your news with Cindy on Thursday of that week.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Me and Glenn is probably going to be. Okay.
Oh, okay. So you and Glenn.
Yep. All right. Ready to get us started with today's news?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. This one comes to us from ABC. It says shops in 2 Dutch cities start selling legally grown cannabis in an experiment to regulate pot trade.
Interesting. It's a paradox at the heart of the Netherlands' permissive pot policy, and it went up in smoke on Friday in 2 Dutch cities as coffee shops began selling the country's first legally cultivated cannabis as part of an experiment to regulate the trade.
The experiment could mark the beginning of the end for a long-standing legal anomaly. You can buy and sell small amounts of cannabis without fear of prosecution in the Netherlands, but growing it commercially remains illegal.
This is really a very, very big step in the right direction. That comes from Derek Bergman. He's the chairman of the Union of the Abolition of Cannabis Prohibition, and he said as he sat in the De Baron Cannabis Cafe in the southern Dutch city of Breda.
Dutch Health Minister Ernest Kuipers visited earlier to launch the new policy. The plan for the experiment dates back to 2017, 6 years in the making. Wow. And is seen as a way of providing quality controlled cannabis to coffee shops, places that are allowed to sell cannabis, and shutting out illegal growers.
By regulating the sale of cannabis, we have a better insight into the origin of the products and the quality, Kuipers said. In addition, we can better inform consumers about the effects and health risks of cannabis use.
Bart Bolenberg, who grows cannabis for the experiment, called it a happy day for the Netherlands. The most significant advantage is that it is not criminal activity and it becomes transparent, he says. You can test the cannabis in the laboratory with all the knowledge and skills of Dutch and horticultural We can start improving the quality of cannabis now. We no longer need to make all kinds of twists and turns in illegalities.
A trailblazer in decriminalizing cannabis since the 1970s, the Netherlands has grown more conservative. Amsterdam, long a magnet for cannabis smokers from around the world, has been closing coffee shops in recent years and has banned cannabis smoking on some of the cobbled streets that make up its historic center.
Across the nation, there are 565 coffee shops. That is down from around 2,000 in the real heyday, Bergman says. Meanwhile, other countries around the world and some U.S. states have taken steps to legalize the recreational use of cannabis.
We are finally taking a small place on the international stage back again, Bergman says. It's not like we're back full on. It's a small experiment. So you just got 2 shops here and they're just going to
Yeah,
experiment those 5.
yeah, they're going to increase it. Yeah,
5?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, Friday marked the first day of what the government calls the closed coffee shop chain experiment. The initial phase is scheduled to last a maximum of 6 months and could then be rolled out to 11 municipalities across the Netherlands.
Okay. Saying during the startup phase, growers, coffee shop owners, transporters, and supervisors will gain experience with the supply and sale of regulated cannabis and its supervision, secure transport, and the use of the track and trace system that comes from the Ministry of Health, Welfare, and Sport.
Coffee shops in Breda nearby Tilburg are allowed to have a maximum of 500 grams of cannabis from legal growers in stock at a time. Brenda Mayor Paul Dupe said the initial experiment in his city and Tilburg would help detect any growing pains in the system.
I'm wondering if this is relating to hash as well, or if this is just dried flower, because I know that Amsterdam's so known for their hash cafes.
Yeah,
Right? It's also a great
yeah.
opportunity to see how cooperation within the closed chain between legal growers, coffee shop owners, and all other authorities involved works. It's so interesting that they've taken this position now that they're doing it this legal route when we've been known for going there for all these decades just to have their not legal cannabis.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, the Trimbos Institute, a Dutch organization that raises awareness about mental health and the use of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco, is involved in the experiment and promoting measures to prevent cannabis use.
We think it's important that people who use cannabis are well informed about the risks and options for help. It's from spokeswoman Harriet Coop.
For longtime campaigner Bergman, an upside of the new policy is that smokers can now easily see who grew the cannabis they are using and let friends know whether it's any good. It's relief. That's the weed is quite good, he says, smiling as he lit his marijuana cigarette in a small puff of thick white smoke.
Saying there's a downside. He looked at a plastic beaker and the plastic bag holding the newly legally grown weed in a much smaller plastic container for illegal cannabis, saying the new system produces much more plastic waste. Ooh, here too, over in Canada
Oh,
too.
yes, it does.
It really does. We just used to get a baggie.
Yes.
Why can't we just have a bag with a sticker or like a marker on it? Come on, you guys.
Oh, I know. It's just massive.
Right.
Like I bought some cannabis about the only time I did this year, and the packaging, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
How
we
much
have
was involved in it.
bins full of small
Bins.
containers and pre-roll, like bins of them. Like there's got to be hundreds of containers that we have because you can't recycle them. What are we
No.
gonna do? What do we?
What do
Like,
you
you can't
do with
recycle those plastic. We just keep them because we don't want them to go to the landfill.
Is there anything you can reuse them for?
Well, we put our weed in them, but we never have like, hundreds of pounds of weeds that's going to fill
Right.
all of our containers, right?
Yeah, exactly. You gotta grow outside, maybe then.
Yes.
All right, on to the next story. I'm gonna get you started, and then I'm gonna let my dog out. But
Sure.
BC Biz Daily headline says, "Why was the Ontario Cannabis Store sitting on $500 million of Canadian cash
Ooh,
stockpile?" Good
look at that
question.
big pile of cash there.
There you
Ontario's
go.
government-owned cannabis wholesaler was sitting on more than 500 million Canadian dollars in cash earlier this year. But officials have declined to spell out why the Ontario Cannabis Store held on to that much money rather than remit some of it back to the provincial government earlier. According to recent disclosed Ontario Cannabis Store financial statements, the wholesaler had $536 million in cash as of March 31st of this year. That ended its fiscal year, including millions of dollars of interest revenue. They're holding on to it all.
Yes, they are. The cash stockpile has fallen since then, after the OCS only recently began paying a dividend to the Ontario government. But the monopoly wholesaler, the most profitable cannabis operation in Canada, is still holding hundreds of millions of dollars in cash.
I like that they say that again. Most profitable cannabis operation in our country. Both the Ontario Ministry of Finance and the OCS have declined to get into specifics about the cash holdings. They're not answering questions, Al.
It's a slush fund for election time.
Probably.
Yeah, Michael Armstrong, an associate business professor at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario, who studies Canada's regulated cannabis market, said the lack of answers raises transparency questions.
In a phone interview, he says, on the transparency side, what are you going to do with the cash? And why aren't you telling us about this stuff? Oh, I like that.
Yes. Armstrong noted that the OCS cash position is much higher than the other provincial cannabis wholesalers relative to daily expenses, and other provinces are more forthright when it comes to where the profits are going.
The issue first came to light in a recent paper written by Armstrong for the publication Policy Options. He wrote in the paper that the OCS is the most lucrative provincial cannabis agency in Canada, thanks to 4 consecutive profitable years selling recreational cannabis. Yet throughout that time, it puzzlingly paid no dividends to the Ontario government.
Now, after Armstrong's paper was published, the cannabis wholesaler unilaterally reached out to MJ Biz Daily to explain that it started making dividend payments to the Ontario government only in late September of 2023, and a subsequent quarterly payment was made November 30th.
Okay, so they say that the dividend payments began nearly 5 years after recreational cannabis was legalized. But the profits, it goes on to say, the OCS said in its 2020-21 annual report that it's proud of its financial contributions that support important public services. Where? What public services? What?
Yet the OCS didn't start making dividend payments until 3 months ago. Right. In an email to MJ Biz Daily, an OCS spokesperson wrote that, as a business enterprise of the Ontario Government of Ontario, the OCS generates net profits that, over time, may be remitted to the province to help fund its fiscal priorities, including public services and infrastructure that Ontario communities depend on.
What?
Took 5 years.
May be remitted? So it may be remitted to help their... What? Why not is remitted? Why maybe after 5 years now they're just going to go in and get some of that cash, and the OCS is just rubbing their hands together. Meanwhile, retailer after retailer after retailer is going under, and we're being charged way too much money, and craft growers are going under because they can't meet up with the tax demands, and the CRA is coming after everybody. But they're just starting now to give money to the government. Give me a break.
Oh yeah, yes, that's what they're doing. The OCS started making dividend payments in late September and will do so on a quarterly basis going forward. The OCS is committed to enabling a vibrant cannabis marketplace and is pleased to have formally initiated the process of returning its profits to the province. You only started doing that because you got caught.
Because they got caught.
They got
called
out.
Look at it says here, the profits by fiscal year. It goes on to talk about that, blah, 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 blah. And then it says the OCS has been accumulating interest income for years. So they're not only making a whole bunch of cash, they're making cash off the cash.
Yeah. The interest income on bank balances amounted to $16.8 million. That's the interest.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
I and recently in a city that I looked at a beautiful store that I love so much, and they're just gone under. And it's a city near us. I won't bring up which one it was now,
Yep.
but I thought, here we go. Another mom and pop shop gone because they can't afford to pay their taxes. They can't
Yeah.
afford to pay all these things. And the OCS is sitting on all this cash. Give me a break. According to
Oh,
the order in council, on or before September 29, 2023, the Ontario Cannabis Retail Corporation shall pay into the Consolidated Revenue Fund its net profits in the amount of $150 million from the cash balances of March 31st. That's it.
I
They're
want,
just being ordered to pay it now.
yeah, yeah. It also said the Ontario Cannabis Retail Corp, which is the legal name of the OCS, shall pay into the CRF its net profits for quarterly payments each fiscal year equal to the OCRC's annual budgeted net incomes less finance income reported on the OCRS's audited financial statements for that year and shall be adjusted based on actual net income realized. So does that mean it could work all those figures down to zero?
It could. It maybe could. It goes on to talk about the cash stockpiling of the other ones that have gone under, but it's really, really, and I really appreciate this reporter, Matt Lamers, really calling out the OCS and their giant pile of money and
Yeah.
how they need to pay this. They need to either that or they need to start lowering their profit margin with the money that they're making here.
The OCS stockpile of cash is greater than the Toronto-based licensed producers Kronos Group,
Yep.
the Ontario headquartered Tilray brands, and Aurora Cannabis.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And it goes on to, and it talks about even the Edmonton one, and it's greater than that. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't even.
That's a lot of money, but there you go. Check it out.
So we talk about the social equity funds that the United States are responsible for, and going back into helping with roads and helping with social programs and all of this stuff. What's the OCS giving it to? They just put out these grants, these trailblazer grants that were coming to people could apply for them over the last year. They were not they were not in the right places. The funds that they went out to, the research projects were not in the right places. What is going on with them?
There was a story that Glenn and I covered on Thursday, and it had to do with getting breakfast for kids in school. The money, the profits from
in Canada or the U.S.
No, this is in
of course it's the US.
City in the U.S. Yeah.
Wow.
The money would be going to breakfast for kids that need it.
You need to send the OCS that article, and let them know.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey guys.
Yeah. Because Stratcan tells us the OCS continues to grow with nearly $1.5 billion in wholesale sales in 22-23.
Wow.
$1.5 billion. They are the only wholesale distributor in the province.
Right? They're the only one. They're the distribution of 315,000 kilograms of cannabis products across a network of more than 1,600 stores, as well as online sales, which we know is very small. And that comes out in their most recent annual report.
Yeah, by provincial order, the agency was required to pay its net profits of $150 million from its cash, which you just went on the story about that. And the report covering the 22-23 fiscal year ended March the 31st shows the provincial cannabis distributor and online retail generated a net income of $234 million over the past year and revenue of $1,474 million. So that would be billions, would that not? Making a growth of $293 million compared to $1,180,000 in 21. Wow. Big sales.
Wow. Huge numbers. The province captured nearly 60% of the cannabis market with its sales, a continued increase in the total share of the market. Sales increases were assisted by establishing the OCS flow-through program, which combined with the number of products held in stock in the distribution warehouse grew to almost 3,000 SKUs, a 46.5% increase over the previous fiscal year.
The total number of units sold through the OCS flow-through was 1.4 million. The total number of LPs that the OCS partnered with was 239, which is an increase from 90 compared to 21-22. I was really surprised by that. I thought they would be worth more. We got over 1,000, or right around that 1,000 mark.
Yeah. 239 seems low.
Yeah.
The number of stores in Ontario has continued to increase, even as stores closures have also been picking up pace. Ontario added an additional 345 authorized cannabis stores in the most recent fiscal year, growing up to 1,661 stores across the province as of March 31st. Another 144 stores have closed during this time period.
Online cannabis sales through the OCS website deceased in the last fiscal year as the provincial agency has made efforts to improve its wholesale service levels to retailers and prioritized stuff.
Dried flower sales through the OCS saw a significant decline from 49.8% of sales in 21-22 to 37.6% in 22-23. Sales of generally smaller SKUs like pre-rolls, oils, capsules, vapes, and concentrates, edibles, and beverages increased, though, through the online platform.
Yeah, they go through different variant of different pre-rolls, vapes, and how the percentages are, and they said that the OCS will be lowering its margins in the wholesale products in the second quarter of 23-24, which it expects will inject approximately $35 million into the marketplace and roughly $60 million by 2024-35, with even further planned reductions. So it sounds like they're going to lower. They've made their billions, and now they're going to start reducing their amount of profit.
Right. Well, let's hope so. And they've got a good graph here. It goes on to saying the most recent fiscal year was the most profitable year for the OCS so far, with a reported total comprehensive income of $234.2 million compared to $184.4 million the previous year.
Yeah. The OCS has used these profits to repay the loan provided by the Ontario Finance Authority. In 2022-23, $7.6 million in loan principal was repaid. $1.8 million in interest was paid, for a total of $9.4 million. The balance of the loan as of March 31st, 23 was $60 million. It completed a total of $37.6 million in payments to various levels of governments. With all that money they have, they shouldn't have to have any loans.
Yeah, they shouldn't have any debt at all.
Yeah, I got to go let the dog in. You can continue there.
Yep. They're just stockpiling their money, it seems. The federal government received $27.6 million in harmonized sales tax remittances from Ontario cannabis sales in 22-23, an increase of $27 million in 21-22. The Ontario provincial sales tax component of the HST was $17 million in 22-23 compared to $16.6 million in 21-22. So just a little bit up there. You there? Okay, good.
Yeah, on or before September the 29th, 2023, the Ontario Retail Cannabis was required to pay cash into the CRF fund, and its net profits of $150 million, which we covered in the other story. So there you go. Well,
they're rich.
Let's hope that like all that money, it's just sitting there. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
All the money where the cannabis is being sold for profit and not as medicine, and
Yeah.
Money much better.
It's been medicine in this. It's been in this. It's been medicine
research
in this country
for medical purposes. Maybe they could go into that. There's a thought.
Hey, I understand they're going to spend some of that money on testing some fake label percentages on THC, but like you said, why not fund some medical research?
Please.
Oh, I know these THC
a little backwards here.
Yeah.
But at least we're not in New York.
Yeah. They have their own problems. Where the New York bill would create psilocybin therapy pilot program for 10,000 military veterans and first responders, and that comes to us from the marijuana moment.
This is good news. It's good news. A New York lawmaker has introduced a bill, and it's going to create a pilot program to provide psilocybin therapy to 10,000 people. It's going to focus on military veterans and first responders, while the legislature also considers broader psychedelic reform.
Assembly member Pat Burke, who has championed various psychedelic measures over the recent sessions, filed the therapeutic psilocybin pilot program legislation on Wednesday. They would create a program under the State Department of Health, which would be required to provide funding to cover the therapy and develop training guidelines for professional facilitators. It would need to issue a report on findings and policy recommendations to the governor and legislature every 2 years after enactment.
A total of 10,000 patients could participate, including veterans and their families, first responders, and people who suffer from cluster headaches. They would need to reside in the western region of New York.
The pilot program would end if psilocybin is approved for medical use by the Federal Food and Drug Administration. Good luck there.
We want that to happen. Psilocybin therapy offers serious potential benefits to assist with mental health, but it suffers from a lack of substantial medical testing. That comes from a memo attached to the measure. This bill would alleviate that problem by establishing a pilot program to test psilocybin therapy's effectiveness on mental health.
The pilot program would help record the effects of this treatment on their conditions in order to better understand the effects of this new therapy, which promises some substantial benefits.
Under the legislation, the health department would be able to enter into agreements with experts, nonprofit organizations, universities, or other institutions for the performance of an evaluation of the implementation and effectiveness of the program.
This is where I think Health Canada failed. They should have allowed the program to have patients volunteer information in order to fill that void. 20 years of doing this stuff, just think of what they could have collected.
Right.
The department may seek any necessary federal approval for and carry out research programs relating to medical use of psilocybin, the bill text says. Participation in any such research program shall be voluntary on the part of facilitators, patients, and designated caregivers. Exactly that Health Canada could have done here for the last 20 years.
Exactly. The bill would further protect patients, practitioners, and facilitators from any arrests or any other civil or criminal penalties related to psilocybin activity that's made lawful.
Burke, the sponsor, filed separate legislation earlier this year that would more broadly allow people to receive psilocybin treatment from a certified facilitator in a clinical setting or at their home if they're unable to travel. The bill was amended this week to add psychologists to the list of professionals who would be eligible to serve as facilitators.
That's fantastic. Last December, Assembly member Linda Rosenthal separately introduced a measure to legalize certain psychedelics and psilocybin and ibogaine for adults 21 and older. So they're working at it. They're trying.
We're working at it. That's right. They are. Okay. Last one before we go to break. And this one is coming to us from the Entrepreneur. And the headline on this one, come on, says the Texas activist sues city that refuses to reform cannabis laws despite ballot measure approval. Okay, that means that's what the people wanted.
Yeah. Activists in Texas are suing the city of Harker Heights for failing to reform its cannabis laws after voters approved the changes in 2022. Their TV reports that the group Ground Game Texas has been behind several successful ballot initiatives in Texas towns and cities that have led to local cannabis law reforms.
In an interview with KCEN, Julie Oliver, executive director of Ground Game Texas, said the lawsuit is about enforcing the will of the voters. Hey. Yep. It says here, Darker Heights officials are undermining local democracy by disregarding the clear language of the city charter. Whatever policy disagreements the city manager or the city clerk might have with the voters who approve Proposition A, it's not the job of the city staff to ignore the result of the lawful initiative election. We attempted to negotiate with the city manager and the city attorney, but they ignored our attempts. Now we are fighting for the rights of Harker Heights voters in a Bell County District Court.
Harker Heights Assistant City Manager Jerry Bark told KCEN that the city was not notified of such a lawsuit. He says, we'll send it to our legal counsel for a review once we receive the documents. As of right now, the city has no comment on the lawsuit.
In 2022, voters in 5 Texas cities, including Harker Heights, approved ballot initiatives backed by Ground Game Texas to end enforcement of low-level cannabis prohibition or possession crimes. Last March, police in Killen indicated that following the voter approval of the measure, they had released 77% of the individuals they encountered who possessed cannabis.
Okay. Charles Kimball says the cannabis decriminalization ordinance does not hamper the ability of the law enforcement to remove some of the worst violators off the street. Those cannabis violators.
Those cows.
They need to be removed off the street.
Yeah. Yes. It's so bad. Yeah. You know, like you see that in states where the voters approve this, and then the governing body wants to change the way everything is done. That's not what the people approved.
Oh, that's not democracy.
Well,
Not at all.
All right. Time to hear from our sponsors and for us to take a break. You're watching Psychedelics and Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adopts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, welcome back to Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News. Hi, Kelly. How you doing? We are ready to bring you our second half of our program, and we're going to get started right here with the marijuana moment and a headline that says, Federal court rejects doctors' push to force DEA to send psilocybin rescheduling petition to the FDA.
Oh, a federal appellate panel has denied a motion by lawyers for a Washington state doctor trying to reschedule psilocybin under the Federal Controlled Substance Act. In an order this week, a three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit rejected the doctor's request for a rehearing of an earlier court decision that returned the matter to the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Well, the early ruling in October technically went against the DEA. The court did not send the rescheduling petition to the Food and Drug Administration for review, as lawyers for the doctor had requested.
Earlier this week, lawyers said in a petition for rehearing that they're asking for the panel to revisit the ruling because the order did not address their argument that federal statute requires a referral to FDA to conduct a scientific and medical evaluation and scheduling recommendation.
Instead, the court ordered a remand back to the DEA itself. Now, according to Sunil Agarwal, the Advanced Integration Medical Science Institute says that this submission has both legal and practical ramifications for the practitioners, and practitioners request that the panel correct this legal error.
As lawyers for Agarwal explained in their request for the hearing, in a civil case where one of the parties in the United States agency, any party may file a petition for a rehearing within 45 days, stating that the particularity each point of law or fact that the petitioner believes the court has overlooked or misapprehended.
If agencies could simply procure naked remands, as the court ordered here, in response to substantive petitions, such a precedent would embolden agencies to avoid making decisions on the merits, the filing says. In other words, such a precedent would incentivize agencies to say less, not more, in initial decisions, multiplying judicial workload and delaying decisions on the merits.
But in a one-line ruling handed on Tuesday, the court denied the rehearing request without explaining its reasoning. Given that Agarwal's rescheduling petition is back in DEA's hands, the agency could now reject the request again and keep psilocybin's legal status unchanged. The doctor told Marijuana Moment in October, however, "We have no way of saying that is what to expect." Wow.
Agarwal has been working since at least 2020 to find a way to legally obtain psilocybin for patients in palliative care. He initially sought to win permission from regulators under state and federal right to try laws, which allow patients with terminal diseases to try investigational medications that haven't been generally approved.
When DEA rebuffed that request, Agarwal sued. But in early 2022, a federal appellate panel dismissed the lawsuit, opining that the court lacked jurisdiction because DEA's rejection of Agarwal's administrative request didn't constitute a reviewable agency action.
The current Ninth Circuit case stems from Agarwal's response in last year's ruling. In February 2022, the doctor filed a petition with DEA to reschedule psilocybin from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 under the Federal Controlled Substances Act, the denial of which is reviewable action.
DEA denied Agarwal's petition in September of last year. Agarwal filed suit in December. In its October ruling, the Ninth Circuit panel said DEA's denial failed to provide sufficient analysis and failed to clearly indicate that it has considered the potential problem identified in the petition. There you go.
Yeah. Given the inaccuracy of the DA's denial level, the court wrote in a footnote, "We do not address Agarwal's statement that 21 USC 811B requires the DEA to refer Agarwal's petition to the Department of Health and Human Services."
God, so frustrating. As Agarwal's rescheduling effort has made its way through the courts, a number of studies have strengthened the case of psilocybin's legitimate medical use. And just this week, Congress sent a defense bill to President Joe Biden that contains provisions to fund studies into therapeutic use of psychedelics such as psilocybin and MDA for military service members. There you go. What is going on? Let the people have the medicine.
Exactly. Earlier this month, results of the clinical trial published by the American Medical Association found that psilocybin displayed strong and persistent antidepressant effects in people with bipolar 2 disorder, with no signal of worsening mood instability or increased suicidality.
A separate study published this month, meanwhile, found that psilocybin, alongside with LSD, could offer promising therapeutic potential for treatment of
Mhm.
chronic pain. On a mechanistic and experimental level, what's more, authors of that analysis noted that pain reliving effects of LSD and psilocybin seem to increase with repeated treatment, unlike opiates, which display decreased therapeutic effect over time, meaning you have to take more
Yeah,
or shorter time between them.
exactly. Let's do some LSD and some mushrooms to deal with
Please.
as a substitute for opiates, maybe. So now in September, researchers at Johns Hopkins and Ohio State University published a report that linked psilocybin use with the persisting reductions in depression, anxiety, and alcohol misuse, as well as increase in emotional regulation, spiritual well-being, and extroversion.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Those results
yeah.
were highly consistent with the growing body of clinical trial, behavioral pharmacology, and whatever that word is, data in psilocybin, authors of the study said. Overall, these data provide an important window into the current resurgence
Mhm.
of public interest into classic psychedelics and the outcomes of contemporaneous increases in naturalistic psilocybin use.
Yeah. Then they go on to report, comment on some other studies that have been done,
Yeah.
and we'll stop that there. But yeah,
Okay. Wow.
veterans and stuff,
They need
would
that.
have liked all that, but they reject.
Well, I mean, look, if you want to do it, be allowed to do it. If you don't want to do it and you want to use Western pills with pharmaceutical medicine from the white coat doctors, use that. Make your choices,
Mhm.
but give people a choice. Give them a choice.
Give them the choice. Yeah, that's we had a choice. That's the choice I made 20 years ago, right?
You make your choices, right?
That's right.
How
All
dare
right,
they?
on to the next story. And this one's coming to us with the marijuana moment. Top Virginia senator wants legal marijuana sales in exchange for approving sports stadium favored by governor.
Very interesting here. As
Is that right
Virginia's
or wrong?
Republican governor and
Goddamn.
other leaders pursue a plan to bring two professional sports teams, the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals, to Alexandria, the state's Democratic Senate leader has suggested this week that her support for the plan might be contingent on getting a bill to legalize cannabis sales to enacted into law.
Well, some people want sports stadium. Senate President pro tempore Louis Lucas said in a social media post on Monday, "I want tolls to disappear from Hampton Roads, and I want recreational sale of marijuana. Guess we will have to
So she's going to
find
trade her vote
compromise."
for it. Is
Yeah.
that what this is? She's trading her vote for it. I'll let you come here if you give me my cannabis. The
Yeah.
comment comes as supporters of bringing the two Washington, D.C. teams to Virginia gear up to push $2 billion entertainment district in Alexandria, which would include a stadium, practice facility, performing arts venue, and an updated esports facility, in addition to a variety of mixed-use development.
The project, which would require support from the state legislature to create a new authority to issue development bonds, would be located adjacent to the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus near Amazon's second headquarters.
This makes it sound like your vote on the arena can be bought, suggested one commentator, to which Lucas replied, quoting to the first Black woman to be elected to Congress, "I am an unbought and I am unbossed."
Luke has been a supporter of cannabis legalization for years now. In 2021, she called on her colleagues and then Governor Ralph Northam to make the change that year, which they did. On April 20, the next year, she celebrated the state's end to cannabis prohibition, but said there is much more work to be done.
One major reform many Democrats would like to see is the legalization of retail cannabis sales. Under the change in 2021, lawmakers led by Democrats legalized the use, possession, and limited personal cultivation of cannabis by adults. But Republicans, after winning control of the state House of Delegates and governor's office, blocked the required reenactment of regulatory framework for the retail sales.
So Republicans, which you think is pro-business, they blocked?
Yeah.
The majority of Virginians agree with Senator Lucas. It's time to regulate the sale of cannabis to adults 21 and older in three commonwealths. J.M. Pidney, development director for the advocacy group NORML and executive director of Virginia NORML, told Marijuana Moment in an email on Friday.
The Democratic-controlled Senate passed a legal sales regulation bill this year, but a GOP House majority killed the legislation. Without a legal place for consumers to purchase cannabis, illegal, unlicensed storefronts have proliferated across the state.
As Lucas' social media post makes clear, some lawmakers would still like to see progress on legal sales. One of Lucas's colleagues, Senator Adam Eben, recently said he's confident that lawmakers can send a bill to tax and regulate cannabis sales to Governor Glenn Youngkin in the coming year. The question, you know what it is, whether supporters can build enough bipartisan support to avoid a potential veto. Yeah, he'd probably veto it too.
Eben, who has indicated his intent to file a cannabis sales bill in the new legislative session, said at the time that he wasn't able to discuss details of the forthcoming proposal because we are just getting to the final draft details together still with legislative services.
Now, following November's election, Democrats will have majorities in both House and Senate, which some advocates see as a path to finally allowing legal sales.
Well, Eben, who championed the state's 2021 legislation law, is expected to introduce a bill in the coming session that would legalize commercial cannabis sales. It's unclear how the proposal will fare. In addition to hesitancy from Republicans and uncertainty around Youngkin's stance, there are also calls from Black and progressive advocates to build justice and equity reforms into legislation.
Chelsea Higgs Wise, executive director for Marijuana Justice, for example, has said that Democrats need to use their new power to pass a bill that centers social equity and has repairs for drug war harms built into the framework for legal sales. But she has also doubted it's actually possible for Democrats to thread the needle and dodge Youngkin's veto, regardless how much they compromise with Republicans. Yeah, it'll come right down to one guy. All this going on, one guy just say no.
One guy.
And you just veto it. Yep. No.
She told Marijuana Moment earlier this year, I believe that Governor Youngkin will ensure that the entire nation knows that he has been able to veto an adult sales bill in Virginia. He would love nothing more but to have that on his Republican resume.
While Youngkin's administration has signaled its hesitance to move forward on further adult use cannabis reform, the governor's own comments have been less clear.
Do you want to keep going?
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't write legislation for them. They've got to sort this out. Youngkin told public media outlet VPM in February when a separate sales bill from Eben was still in play. I have said over and over again, I think that creating a market for cannabis is very complicated. There's other states that have struggled and they've got to do the work. And I've looked at them for sending me bills.
Yeah, that means no.
Yeah.
Eben, who saw the Republican-controlled House vote down a Senate-passed sales measure in 2022, told the Marijuana Moment in October that Youngkin has been a challenge to deal with because he hasn't been forthcoming with his views and what he's willing to support. I'm not sure what the governor will sign since he's been kind of cagey and not really supportive in his public statements, he said at that time. And I don't believe he'll sign it either.
No.
Yeah.
And asked whether it was possible that Democrats rally behind a bill that narrow and designed to be palatable to Youngkin, only to have the governor veto it anyway. Eben told Marijuana Moment, I would say there would be substantial chance of that. So just like you're saying, there's everybody's saying no here. One guy.
Yeah. Oh, and just so you know, a Gallup poll released last month shows that the majority of Republicans, along with 70% of Americans overall, support legalizing cannabis. And Youngkin will say
70%.
no. 70%.
70%. I don't
Yeah.
understand. 70% of Americans want cannabis to be legal, and it's not even on the table here. They keep saying no, veto, no, veto, no. What?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is not a democracy. That's communism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The U.S. is a communist state.
Well, see what happens after the next election. All right, on to the next article, and headline on that from CBS News says that St. Paul College offers fast track cannabis certification to join the workforce.
Yeah, I like this. Neat idea. It's Minnesota's growing cannabis industry, and it helps to have a higher education because St. Paul College is now offering certification programs to give prospective employers a competitive edge.
That sounds like Loyalist College in Belleville. They've got
Yeah.
a program. Yep. After recreational cannabis was legalized on August the 1st, it opened up a whole new world of job opportunities for Minnesotans. That's where St. Paul College says they can help.
Program Manager Brady Maleka says they're helping prospective cannabis industry employees build their skill set, saying we're trying to take away as many barriers as we can for folks to get into this field. We're looking to help not only inspire, but train the next level of workforce for cannabis industry as the industry evolves and starts to grow.
St. Paul College joins forces with Greenflower Cannabis Education Company to launch 3 cannabis certification courses. Number 1, cannabis retail specialist that's working directly with customers to help them find the right product for what they want or need. Cannabis cultivation specialist, growing the plant and the botany side of the business. Product development. Number 3, understanding doses and the different forms of cannabis comes in.
Those are excellent courses. We just opened all 3 of those certificate courses last week, and it's what we call rolling enrollment. So anyone can come and sign up at any point now, said Maleka.
Not only will students wrap up this 9-week program fully certified, but they will also get placed into a job portal similar to Indeed that will help them land a job in the industry quicker.
That's fantastic that exists. Wow. We are there for that whole entire process up until the job interview and the application itself. Most cannabis degrees are under a 2 to 4 college plan, which start at $8,000 and go up from there, $8,000 and go up from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say they're trying to remove the financial barrier. They say each certificate is $750, and they do have a payment plan as well. Yeah, there you go.
So each of one of those is $750. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all.
No, no. I see this, these college programs going on, but why don't we get some medical university programs?
Yes. Yeah.
Where
I think they're starting off
Yeah.
small, but like you said, like Loyalist, what we have here in
Yes.
Belleville, those programs are a little bit more costly than the St. Paul's one, but worth it,
Yeah.
worth it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And on to our next story, which from my understanding is a follow-up to a story that you and Rev Cindy did on Wednesday. And the headline here on CTV News says that teen boys arrested after a string of violent robberies in Calgary cannabis stores. Wow.
Shocking that they're kids. It's a week after the public appeal, and I remember we showed the videos, showed the footage of the videos. It's a string of
Yeah.
robberies at cannabis stores in Calgary, but police say they have several teenage boys in custody.
Yeah, the Calgary Police Service says that there were 12 robberies at several cannabis stores in the city in the last month alone. Some of the incidents turned violent, including one in which a store clerk was knocked unconscious after being kicked by the suspects. A knife, handgun, and hammer were used in some of the robberies as well, the police say.
4 boys, either 16 or 17 years old, were arrested later in separate incident for operating a stolen vehicle, but police say the investigation is ongoing and charges related to the robberies will likely come in the new year.
Wow, 16 and 17-year-olds. I know what I was doing at that time, and it wasn't robbing stores.
No.
No. Investigators believe more people could be involved in the string of incidents and are not ruling out additional suspects being arrested in the future. The The report says that from the police services says that generally speaking, suspects are stealing cannabis products from retail stores and then reselling them selling them illegally for profits.
Yeah. I remember when we did this thinking that most of these bud tenders at these stores are kids to me. You know, they're under 25, they're young, and they're getting hurt and kicked and beaten by somebody in a store.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that's because of the enclosed windows, how you can't see in and out. We've talked about that before. So
Yeah.
it's not safe for them. Well, it's believed the dozen armed robberies are related. Another cannabis shop in Calgary was broken into earlier this week.
Yeah, a store at 2700 block of Center Street Northwest was targeted early Monday morning by 4 masked suspects. Police were able to track down the suspects in that robbery and took them into custody. They are also youths between the ages of 14 and 17 years old. They are not the teens involved in the violent break and enter. So these are more
teens,
14 and 17-year-olds.
Oh my goodness. And it's
Wow.
the 4 youths that were charged in Monday's robbery are charged with break and enter, possession, break and enter. I mean, that's really young for them to be out there doing that.
It sure
Going
is.
in there.
Yeah.
Violent robberies of cannabis stores. They're not even old enough to consume the cannabis or go in the stores. Maybe that's why they're going in. Maybe
Yeah.
they're kept away from it. So,
it's it's never fun being robbed.
No.
Talking from experience. I got hit on the head.
I know you did. You were young too.
Yeah, I was young too. Yeah, exactly. I was 18 at the time when I got robbed. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Something stays with you. Something like that stays with you.
It does. It does. You know, here we are over 40 years later, 45 years later, and I still remember it all. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I see we're short on time in order to get the last story in, but the headline on it said that Carnival's cruise lines denies that anti-marijuana enforcement measures are meant to boost alcohol sales on the ships.
And we were talking about that before the broadcast. We're not happy with that, are we?
No.
It's not fair.
Yeah, not fair. Not fair. All right. Anything you want to say before we sign out?
Have a great Christmas break, holiday break, whatever you celebrate. Have some time off. Remember friends and family and give as much as you possibly can.
That's right. And you and I will be back here at the desk January the 9th.
Yes.
All right. Catch you everybody then from the legacy420.com news desk. That's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. Thanks to legacy420.com, Camelford Lifestyle Shop, and limestonehydroponics.ca. Catch your next broadcast Thursday with Glenn and I. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.